Hi, Estee.
Hello. Thank you for
Hi.
having me.
Welcome to the Scenes of Beauty podcast. And thanks so much for coming on. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm excited. Who knows where this conversation could go?
Who knows? They all tend to like go off in spurts in one way or another. So I am interested to see what happens in the next hour or so.
Amazing. And we're doing this very early on a Monday morning. And that's exactly what I wanted to do this with you because it's when I'm the most pure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pure is a great word, and that's kind of what I hope for and my ambitions. So let's start from the beginning if we can, and even pre YouTube days, because you're obviously Canadian. You came
Yes.
when you were 19 to the UK, but kind of can we go back into your childhood and what that was like?
Oh,
And
wow.
can we do this?
Yes.
Can we?
I don't know what you want to know about my childhood. Gosh, how deep are we going?
What was it like? Because I think in the UK we have this perception of we see things on a movie and we just think you get on a yellow school bus and then you go to school and everyone wears their own clothes and then sandwiches in a paper bag. Like what was
That's so
like? But it is what because we
I
we
know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I mean, it's funny for me because when I grew up, I always saw like movies set in England and I was like, oh my God, everybody's like wearing like cloaks and is going to Hogwarts and like, everything is so different there. And so I had the opposite thing, but I don't know what that sound was. Maybe that was my computer. Sorry. But I know what you're talking about because I had the same thing in reverse. But yeah, it was kind of like that, honestly, if I look back to it. I did go to school in a yellow school bus. So I got on a school bus every day. And when I was a kid, I could just walk to school. We lived really close to my school, and my brother and I used to walk to school together, which looking back is just so sweet. Like my mom used to say, okay, guys, have a good day. And like me and my brother would go out the door and walk to school by ourselves. Like Canada, and it was a different time, but Canada, it does have a different feeling to it. And then as I got older, I started to take the yellow school bus and went to high school. And I went to a high school where there was a uniform. So it was a Catholic school. I'm not Catholic, but I ended up going to a Catholic school, and so I had like a little kilt and polo neck. So I had a uniform, which I actually liked. I loved having a uniform because it kind of makes you everybody's on even playing field. I think people became friends that maybe wouldn't necessarily be friends if you had like all of those societal pressures of like what you're wearing and oh, that person's wearing this and that. So I honestly do think uniforms are a good thing. And honestly, I wish I could wear a uniform now because I'm currently in my pajamas, but that's what I'm most comfortable in. But I loved wearing a uniform. So that's a little bit about like my school. And what else is there?
Whereabouts in Canada did you grow up?
So I grew up in a place called Waterloo, Ontario, and it's about an hour outside of Toronto in Canada. And my family is still there. So yeah, that's where I grew up. My brother still lives there. He lives like 5 minutes away from my mom. Well,
Yeah.
actually, he just moved. He lives about 20 minutes from my mom now. So I'm the odd one out when I moved to the UK. I think it wasn't a shock per se, but it was a big change for sure.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about the move to the UK and kind of at that age at 19, you kind of just do things, maybe not on a whim, but looking back, they are probably on a whim.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how that happened?
It's so true. I think I was excited. I was young. It was like an opportunity that I felt like the universe put in front of me. And I've always been kind of intuitive and a little bit spiritual in that sense that I thought I knew it was an opportunity. Like I knew that if I said no to this, it felt like a real fork in the road situation. Like the universe was like, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? So I felt like, oh, I'm just going to be brave and do it. But it wasn't like it would be now in my 30s. Like I'm moving 20 minutes away from where I currently am. And it took me months to decide to move even 20 minutes away because I'm like, my lifestyle is going to change. And like, I'm leaving my friends. And it was different then, though, because I felt when I was 19, I was just still trying to figure out who I was in like a really intense way. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. But then it was like, oh my God, it was all consuming. And I didn't really have a purpose at that time. So it wasn't as stressful, I would say. It was more just like, ooh, scary, excited, like going on a roller coaster. And now, like, even moving 20 minutes away, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out.
Do you think when you do something big like that, or you push yourself into a situation, or you just take a chance, do you think you then open up doors for yourself moving forward, i.e., like you have a bit more self-belief or like confidence in things, that things aren't as scary as what you initially thought they were?
Definitely. And sometimes things are as scary as you initially thought they were. Like, I feel as if I'm taking chances every single day. Like, I'm exhausted. I feel almost like since I moved to the UK, it's been that way just throughout my career and even my, maybe not my personal life so much, but sometimes my personal life. Like, I just feel like I always pushing, but not in a way that's like um, worrying. I just want to take it a little extra step if I can, because I'm kind of obsessed with moving forward. I don't know. I have issues of being present because I'm always like, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you definitely gain a lot of self-confidence. And like even in the beginning, when I first started YouTube and blogging, like going on a train to London to go to an event with people I didn't know. Oh my God, I was freaking out for days about that. Like that was the scariest thing in the world to me. And now it's like I go to like 5 events a week and do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's amazing what you can achieve. It's honestly, it's just practice. It's practicing getting out of your comfort zone. I feel like I'm pretty good in most situations now, even if I don't know what the situations are, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I'm not really into meditation because my mind just like it doesn't stop. It's like a bit like what you were saying then about pushing and constantly thinking about the next thing. And in it says say yes at every possible opportunity, because I translate that as in that's like the universe telling you that there's something there when you
Yeah.
take that opportunity. So it's just interesting, yeah, what you said
It
there.
is. I think one thing though is I was saying yes to everything and I got really tired and I had a lot of burnout. So now I think I choose wisely about which opportunities I take. And I think that comes with a lot of like time and experience and knowing yourself a little bit more and growing up a little bit more because I definitely say no to a lot now. And I think it's like I went through a phase of saying yes, then I went to a phase of saying no to everything. And now I'm like trying to just
Yeah,
do,
find a middle ground.
a bit of both.
Yeah. Um, just going back to when you said, you're always pushing for the next thing, where do you think that comes from? Like, where have you always been like that? Or,
I feel, because I've been thinking about this a lot, that it probably came from my mom.
yeah.
In one way, she's very critical, like she's hypercritical. My mom is, I don't want to say you can't please her because you can, and she's my best friend and I love her, but she's always been very empowering to me. She's a single mom, and I'm just forever in awe of like what she was able to do with my brother and I. And even now, like she's my everything. Like I've, I can't explain how much I love my mom. I'm gonna cry.
You're making me a little bit emotional.
I just respect her so much. I'm sorry. I told you I'm pure in the morning. I respect her so much. And like, I genuinely hope I can be like half the mother to my kids. Like, I just adore her. Anyway, sorry. She always made me feel like I could do stuff, like she always gave me this like idea of like, even if you fail, it's okay, but just try.
Yeah.
And I failed so much. I failed, oh my God. I mean, the world has seen me fail in relationships and, work projects and friendships. And I honestly, I've failed so much. It's actually becoming a bit of a joke. But,
But it's
you
normal,
know,
like it's
it's
so
normal.
normal.
So I think she made me be less afraid of failure, and I think when you aren't so afraid to fail, you're more willing to try things. And I'm actually like getting a little too good at failing. Like I'm so good where it's like as soon as things even start to fail, I'm like, okay, let's cut this off and pivot, let's do something else.
Mhm.
So yeah, probably my mom.
I I was actually, my next thing was going to move on to the relationship with your mum, because I've heard you talk about her a lot, and I find it
Yeah, I'm
really,
like I'm low key obsessed with my mom. Like I hear myself at parties being like, "Oh, my mom does this," and it's like no one else is talking about their mom. I need to stop talking about my mom.
I think that's a really good thing though, because I think, our childhood and our upbringing and our relationship with our parents is actually a massive part of who we are and who we become. And it's the first person that teaches us things. And it's, often our parents give us our intuition and our first knowledge and that kind of stuff. So, what, because you talk about kind of the journey of the relationship with your mum, but what was it like when you were younger versus what it's like now? Because every daughter has issues,
Yeah.
challenges with
Oh,
their mom.
we definitely did not always get along like this. I mean, when I was like, I would say 11 to 15 or 16,
Mhm.
honestly, it was like I genuinely hated her. Like I honestly did because you're a teenager and you don't understand anything. But I honestly hated her guts. I thought everything she did was wrong, annoying. I thought I could do everything better than her. I just didn't like her. And I'm sure she didn't like me. She didn't like me. I know she didn't like me because I was an annoying, bratty teenager who thought I knew everything there was to know about the world. So I think and you're right, every teenage girl kind of goes through something like that. I'm really glad that we managed to like mend our relationship. And, I think there can still be so much growth. And like, even as I get older, I'm like, it's amazing how much our relationship has grown and can grow. Um, but, we still fight. Like, we were in Mexico last Christmas and we had a huge fight, huge fight. And we just eventually talked through it. But I think being so distant from my mom and only being able to like speak on the phone and stuff most of the time, like it's actually helped our relationship a lot. Like I feel as if we know each other in a really different way now. It's actually probably the best thing that's ever happened for us.
Yeah. And it's such a fulfilling moment where you have challenges and then you get to a place where you actually are
Yeah.
friends, because you have to think about it, like they take things from us as well, especially when we get into like mid to late 20s, early 30s, and older. We're adults and we have our own opinions, and our life experience has been completely different to theirs purely because of generational
Yes.
differences. So it kind of becomes this really cool two-way street, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, my mom, she's from a different generation and like communication is just different. You don't like really sit down and like talk about your feelings. When we had this huge fight in Mexico, I was like, Mom, like, just let's sit down and talk about this. She was like, No, I don't want to talk about this. Let's move on. And I was like, No, like, let's talk about, and, we were both like crying and stuff because it's hard. Like, communicating is so hard. I
Yeah.
hate communicating. Why can't everyone just know what we're all thinking? But yeah, you're so right. You do kind of start to teach them maybe like different ways of doing things. And yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. It is. It's cool. Shall we move on to beauty and talking about beauty? Because I'd love to know. Obviously, you create a lot of content around beauty, which we'll kind of move into, but I'd love to know kind of have you always been beauty obsessed or interested in beauty, and what were kind of, I know your first, or maybe wasn't your first moment, you talk about the lipstick moment a lot.
Yeah.
Did you have moments prior to that?
Yes, I had moments prior to that, which no one really ever asked me about. I was not super into makeup and beauty. Honestly,
Mhm.
My brother was like my best friend growing up. I hung out with all of his friends. We were like skateboarding and chilling, you know? That was just, I wasn't a beauty girl. I wasn't like a girly, that was not me. And then when I got into high school, I still wasn't really wearing any makeup, but I started getting into like face masks and stuff like that. And that was fun for me. I did enjoy that because I've always loved being at home. I love being at home and being comfy. But then in high school, there was, of course, like those popular girls who had like tons and tons of makeup on. And I remember being in the bathroom once and they were getting out their makeup bags. And I was like, oh my God, like this makeup bag is so cool. Like, what is in here?
Yeah.
And she pulled out all of this like MAC cosmetics makeup, of course, like the iconic black packaging. And it was like, I remember it so vividly. It was a cream foundation with a sponge and she was just piling it on. But I was like, God, she's gorgeous. And you know, just like mascara and blush, and she brought the whole kit and caboodle to school with her and would like redo it at lunch, like literally reapply the full face at lunch. And I remember being like, I need that in my life. And I went to like MAC and stuff, but I just like didn't even know where to start. But I remember I did get like a powder. Um, and then that was kind of it. Like I wasn't super into it. I did like go into my emo phase. So I started wearing like black eyeliner, like applied very badly. But I've always been pretty natural, honestly, with my makeup. And then, yeah, when I moved to the UK, obviously I had no friends, I had no hobbies, I had no job yet, I had no life. And I was like, I need something to spruce up my mood. Like, okay, people say lipstick makes them feel better. So I Googled like best lipsticks to get at MAC because, first of all, MAC is a Canadian company. And second of all, it just reminded me of home because I was familiar with MAC.
Yeah.
Like Boots was a scary place for me back then. I was like, what is all this British makeup? Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
And I didn't even make it to the Mac store because I was like looking at all these blogs of like different people being like, you should get this lipstick and this lipstick. And everybody was doing swatches and pictures in it. And I was like, who are these girls? Like, they're so cool. I want to be one of them. And then, yeah, shortly after I started my blog.
yeah. And so what did you have a moment where you were like watching these videos and you were like, this is cool, or I connect with this or this? And it's interesting you say, I love asking the question of like where people connect with beauty, and this is where it gets really interesting because people answer in such different ways. You know, I've had people on who have connected with skincare through breaking up with a boyfriend, or
Yeah.
dealing with anxiety by applying makeup, or and it's so interesting that you found that moment when you were in a new town, a new country, everything was new, and that was, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it seems like that was the thing that was kind of the glue that was holding it together.
Definitely.
It's fascinating, really.
Yeah, I became quite like fixated on it, and it did help me through all of those like anxious feelings, depressed feelings, homesick feelings, loneliness, because I was like, well, I've got something to think about. And I was researching it. I was like very into researching. And, you know, I became really connected because I started reading the comments on the blogs and people like knew each other. And, you know, I was obviously trying to make friends because I had no friends. And my mom was like, you should go on Facebook and join a Canadians abroad group. And I was like, no, I am not doing that. So when I saw that these people were like becoming friends, I thought like maybe they'll be my friend. Like it's sad actually looking back on it, but that's why I started to get connected. And I thought like, okay, well, maybe if I get a lipstick that maybe none of them have ever used before, like they might think that that's cool and we can like strike up a conversation. And yeah, that is pretty much what happened. And I became, you know, I don't know if I was more into the makeup or the connection of the people, but it doesn't really matter because I like them both.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. And it's interesting what you say about like never really being a quote unquote beauty girl, because I think a lot of people that are beauty creators, you know, there are the artistries and the MUAs who are fascinated and obsessed with color and product and
Yeah.
formula. But then the majority of the beauty community just want this sense of like self love and like for me in beauty, the sisterhood and the womanhood that I've experienced from it is mind blowing. And I guess that's quite similar to you in terms of community and building a community.
Yeah, completely. And I think like yesterday, for instance, I was like kind of depressed. I'm like going through a bit of a rough time right now. Don't worry about it. But I put on my brow gel and like I put on some concealer. And honestly, I had like a thought to myself. I mean, how much better I can feel just by doing this little thing. And I don't think it's the physical, it's not the way I look because I'm fine with being on the internet in my pajamas and stuff. It's more like I think taking the time to just like do something for yourself. It's like it realigns you somehow. And you're right. It's like when I meet people and I see their lip gloss and I'm like, is that the Fenty bomb gloss or whatever? And they're like, oh my God, yes, it is.
Yeah.
You instantly like you get each other in a way, or like if you notice someone's perfume and you're like, oh my God, that's Glossier you. They're like, oh my God, you like Glossier. You know, it's just it's almost like a shorthand to connect with people.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. I just love it. And I think that's the part of beauty that I'm obsessed with, the bonding and the coming together, because no matter who you are or how much you love beauty, there's always something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the light's really bright. Okay, so on that, in terms of building community, so you started blogging and then you started vlogging, and it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah, it grew from there. I mean, I think a little bit of it was like right place, right time.
Yeah.
It was a different time. And I always say, like, the thought of starting all of that now, it's scary because it is so saturated. I'm not saying it's not possible, it 100% is, and like there's a space for everyone, but it was different then. I don't want to say it was easier because it was just different. Like, it was so new. And I remember like people that I would work with or something, if I told them I had a YouTube channel, they were like, what? That's so weird, you know? And there was a lot of judgment about it. It's hard to imagine now, but there really was. And people used to make fun of me and like think it was weird. And, you know, it did just kind of grow naturally. And then because I made friends through everything, we all just kind of helped support each other to the top in a way because, you know, collaboration is the best thing ever. And that's kind of what happened. And now, I mean, it's been 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, grandma's getting old.
No, not at all. I want to talk about your personality and how that comes through because I think it's really fun. But just before we get into that, when you said, you know, people didn't get it in the first instance, a lot of people at that point would have been like, oh, other people aren't getting this. I am going to stop. Like, I'm making a fool of myself, like, whatever. What was it that kept, I guess maybe it was that thing that we talked about earlier about keep pushing through. But what was it that kind of kept you going?
Yeah, you're so right. Like, I watched people quit. Not quit because like I don't know why they quit. I think for different reasons. Maybe some people wanted more stability. Maybe some people thought, "Ooh, this isn't a real career." Or maybe they just didn't like it. They couldn't deal with the scrutiny. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. But for me, like, I went to university, I studied psychology. I ended up not finishing that degree because I was like, oh, this isn't really for me. Like, there was nothing else that was interested in, you know, like this was probably the first thing in my life where I thought like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this and I like it. So quitting wasn't really an option for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have fantasized about never sharing another moment of my life, but then I'll take like 3 days off and I'm like, oh my God, I miss it. Like, it's hard to explain. I think sometimes things can get really overwhelming. Like, you know, for instance, like going through a very public breakup, that can make you want to like quit and be like, you know what, I'm not doing this ever again. And like, I don't owe any of you anything.
Yeah.
But then you just realize like, it's just like a really bad time, you know? And for the most part, you know, it's all support. Like, when I meet people, they're just regular, awesome people and they get me, you know? It's how many people can say that they have like all these people in the world that just like get you. I feel like sometimes they get me more than I get myself. It's really cool. And I think sometimes like I do just let the negative stuff get the best of me and I kind of get more guarded. But in general, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I just think what did I be doing?
And that so comes through. And you know, I've watched your videos for a long time and followed you for a long time, but I've been, because prior to this I've been doing a bit more digging, and I wrote something down that I think translates your content into words and why people connect with you so much, and it was effortless realism. Like,
Oh,
I know that's so like fangirl, but it's you're so normal, like
thank
so
you.
normal. And
I don't feel normal a lot of the
yeah, well,
time.
I'm guessing your life is not normal, like for to a lot of people, but
I don't know. I feel like I'm normal, but I feel like, oh, here my dog's barking. Effie, we're gonna just act normal now. Hang on, let me grab her. Come here, darling. Come here, darling.
look
Come
at
here.
her.
Oh, she's scared. Um,
She's gorgeous.
she's huge. Um, I feel like I'm normal, and I feel like some people aren't normal. No, it's not that. I just think that some people are afraid of like being honest about stuff. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes I say to my friends, like they're in relationships, I'm like, oh God, like this is hard or something like that. And they're like, no, it's not. What are you talking about? Like, I'm so in love. Everything's perfect. It's like, you're
yeah,
lying.
yeah, yeah,
You're lying to yourself. Like, I don't know. I honestly think I'm too tired to be anybody else. I'm just myself.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's it.
Have you ever had phases where you're like, oh, I put that video out, wow, and it doesn't feel totally authentically aligned to me? Or have, because I think now social media is becoming more and more the overused word, but authentic. But back then, there was a lot of filtering and a lot of pretend and a lot of
Yeah.
flashism, I guess.
I think like back then there was more of um, an expectation to be a bit more polished in a way.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't know why that was, but I felt a bit more like I needed to be positive and this is what I'm doing. And, nobody wants to hear someone be negative. And we're just gonna, you know what I mean? Like it was just more polished. I'd be like, and this is this lip gloss, and I really like it, and honestly, I miss those days because it was definitely a simpler time. I don't think it was like fake necessarily. It was just like, imagine you were going to like a job interview. It's just like a better version of yourself. It was a bit like that.
Mm.
But I think it's good because we're going back to where it was originally, which was just realness. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm so glad for that because
Yeah.
it's just better.
Yeah.
But then again, the stuff that's going on, the TikTok, I feel like an old person, but it's like, it's not all authentic. You know what I mean?
No, it's
It's
not.
all, it's not never going to be fully authentic. Of course it's not, because who is fully open in front of
Yeah.
that many people? Like it's
Yeah.
not natural either. So I think there's a fine line for sure.
Yeah. And I think, we said the word normal a second ago, which everybody's version of normal is completely different to them. And
Of
like
course.
some people like I think when I first started the podcast, I was a bit angry at social media, if I'm being completely honest. I hated filters, I hated people who presented themselves as perfect. And now I'm very much of the stance, if that's what you like and that's what you like to follow, then that's absolutely fine. Like it's fine. Um,
Yeah.
but it's social media is definitely an interesting space. But yeah, I think, do you think your community has grown because of that level of realism and also your energy? Like we can't not talk about your energy. It's
What
just,
energy?
it's so infectious. I mean, you've sat here the whole time and just had the biggest grin on your face, and just, yeah, happiness.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, I feel happy, but I also feel like I'm so depressed as well. It's so interesting because it's like I can have a conversation and be smiling and I am happy. And then like that same day I can be like in bed. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. But I do think my community has like become stronger because of that, because I don't really like shy away from that sort of stuff, I guess. And I think it is just pretty, I know normal is like, we can't say normal, but
Mm.
it's pretty common to have ups and downs. I think that that's it. And people always say that they think it's nice that I share like my mental health struggles, and then I can like do well with like, my brand or something like that. They say it's like kind of nice to see that you can have a like a multi-dimensional life. And I think like my big message is always like, just because you have like depression, anxiety, you can live with it. And like I'm all about just like doing what feels good for you in that moment. Like I've completely rescheduled my life. So now Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, I'm in my office. Monday is like my passion project day. So Monday is like my day to do things like a podcast or like little things that I enjoy doing that I get life from. And then Wednesday, I'm just working from home. So it's like, I don't know, I'm feeling like that's what I need right now. I need to have like a passion project day. So I do think people relate to the idea of like switching things up and stuff to suit how you're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've been doing a bit of that lately. I think it's doing what you feel and doing what you feel is right rather than doing what you think you should be doing. I think doing what
Yeah.
you think you should be doing a lot of the time is counterproductive to your mental state and to your actual levels of productivity as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a good way of working.
It's true. And it's like there are so many things that like you feel like you should be doing. And like I'm in my 30s, and you just start, there's a lot of societal pressures, and it's like, is that even what I want? And it's hard to even know what you actually want because there are so many outside factors like telling you what you should want. And it's really hard to be like sure about yourself sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I definitely get that.
Yeah. You mentioned there about living how did you say it?